This is the White Coat Investor Podcast, Milestones to Millionaire, celebrating stories of success along the journey to financial freedom. Here is your host, Dr. Jim Dolly.
This is Milestones to Millionaire Podcast number 25. This episode is brought to you by 37th Parallel Properties. There's a substantial body of evidence supporting commercial real estate investing. As one of the good guys in the industry, 37th Parallel Properties is a partner I trust. They've been around for more than 10 years and still maintain a 100% profitable track record with clear reporting and excellent educational content. Many of my readers have invested with 37th Parallel, and so have I. I've been happy with my investment. Check them out. Hop on over to whitecoatinvestor.com/37parallel. All right, we've got a great episode for you today. Another millionaire on the show, and I think you're really going to love this one. Let's get our guest on the show. All right, our guest today is Miriam. Welcome to the Milestones to Millionaire podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
What is your specialty and how far are you out of training?
I'm a psychiatrist and I'm 7 years out of training.
And what is your approximate net worth?
It's about $2 million.
About $2 million, 7 years out of training. Pretty awesome. And what's
Thank
that divided
you.
up into?
So it's about 1.4 million in investments, 400,000 in real estate, and then the rest in cash.
Okay. Real estate like the house you live in, or real estate investments?
Yeah, one is the equity in our current home that we're living in, and one is an investment property that we have.
Okay. So 2 properties, and the rest are in what, boring old index funds, or what are they invested in?
All index funds, passive index funds. About half of the 1.4 is in retirement, and the rest is in a brokerage.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on that. That's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
So you're a psychiatrist. What's been your range of income throughout your career?
Well, my husband also works. So between the two of us, it's been about 300 to about 560,000.
Okay. So pretty good range there, but a good income. Clearly, you've had a good shovel with which to dig.
Right. Of course.
Awesome.
That helps.
So what do you think are the secrets? I mean, there's plenty of psychiatrists out there. There's plenty of doctors of every type that make money like you make that did not have $2 million a few years out of residency. What did you guys do differently?
Well, it's a couple of things. Actually, it's interesting. About 3 years ago, I knew nothing. My head was in the sand in terms of finances, just your typical doc. And I had a friend casually asked me about a 401k, and I realized I didn't even know much about a 401k, much less what the maximum was. And I was just utterly baffled and confused. And she pointed me to your website and your podcast. I started obsessively listening.
Friend-to-friend referral. Very nice.
Right.
Yeah.
She's also a doc. And I just started listening to the podcast. I did basically a home makeover on my finances, major rehabbed, got a 529, maxing out the 401k, all the stuff that you preach. And then around the same time, I actually was between jobs and I picked up this temporary sort of like a locums job. And it was like a telepsych gig. And then when I came time to be looking for a more permanent day job, I just kept that job going, picked up a couple of PRN shifts here and there, and then almost was at the point of doubling my income. So that was pretty much the big secret of just the two things kind of coincided at the same time.
I often tell people that I think most people overestimate the difficulty of doubling their income. You just about doubled your income. Was it that hard? I mean, you worked hard, obviously, but was it as hard as you thought it would be to double your income?
No, not really, because I thought that doubling your income would be like me being at the hospital till 8 p.m., never seeing my family, just constantly just working all the time. And don't get me wrong, I'm busy, but because the way I chose the jobs, it's manageable. I do shifts. I do jobs that are intentionally, the PRN shifts at least, that are a little bit easier to do because they're telepsych and they're from home. So, I wouldn't say that I'm I'm definitely not the doc who's coming in right at 9 p.m. or anything like that. I don't think I've ever come in at 9 p.m. actually.
Well, some of us in emergency medicine are going out at 9 p.m.
Right. And as a psychiatrist, I don't feel like that should be something I should be doing. That's kind of why I wanted to the field, right?
That's right. If you do start doing that, let us know. We'll let you come into the ER. We can certainly use you in there. But take us a little bit through the journey. What was your net worth when you came out of training? Do you remember?
I think it was actually positive. It was probably like $50,000
Uh-huh.
because I did a lot of moonlighting and I doubled my income then too for a couple years
Did you
actually.
have student loans that you paid off during residency, or did you get through med school debt free?
Well, I was kind of lucky. My parents did pay for that, so that they paid for medical school. I went to a pretty, really, really affordable undergrad. About it was like $1,900 a semester, so
Wow.
they were able to help me for medical school, and I didn't have much debt when I got out. So that definitely was a factor as well.
Certainly helps, yeah.
Yeah, of
And then
course.
at what point, now obviously you're well past the mark, but at what point did you become a millionaire? Did you even recognize that
Yeah.
you had become one?
Well, my husband was tracking it on Personal
Okay.
Capital. I actually wasn't. I didn't. So it was about 5 years. 5 years after.
5 years or so.
Yeah.
All right. Tell us about the makeover. What were you doing wrong that you corrected?
Oh gosh, so many things. So we had a six-figure income and we were like living. I went home that day, the day that my friend, this very fateful day that my friend told me about 401ks. And I realized we were living paycheck to paycheck on a six-figure income, which I thought was really, really ridiculous. So basically, I was like, we can't do this. And I started maxing out my 401k, which I had not been doing since I'd been attending, which luckily hadn't been that long. It only been about 2 or 3 years. And then, like I said, then what I did, the biggest, I think the most salient factor in all of this was that when I went and looked for my next job, I made sure that they allowed outside moonlighting and side gigs. And that was actually one of the first questions I asked because I didn't want them to own my time in a way. And my first job, they did say like they paid me 185,000, and they said, okay, well, I'm sorry, you can't moonlight the first year anywhere, and from 8 to 5, you can't work anywhere, despite the fact that even if you're off, you cannot work from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So I just made sure that I could keep that high level going.
There are surveys they do of physicians that suggest that docs in their 60s, about 11 to 12% of them, have a net worth under $500,000,
Yeah,
which to many of us
yeah,
is just an appalling statistic.
I know.
What do you think would have happened if you had not had that financial makeover moment and you just kept plodding through your career, basically hand to mouth throughout your career? Do you think you could have been one of those docs? I mean,
Yeah, I could have 100% been one of those docs because one of the so what I basically did at this same exact time, and being a type A doctor, this is like I go through all these analyses when I get into something, and I did analysis of how much I would have if I had continued to contribute to my 401k at the rate that I had been contributing. I would have had that much. So I it could have been 100% me if I had continued the way that I had.
How about the role of debt in your life? Do you have any debt currently?
We just have our primary mortgage of our residence, which is about 600,000.
About 600.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's pretty size.
And are you a parent?
Yes, I am.
How have
Yeah.
you balanced parenting with this journey to become financially successful?
It's one of the main things I think is my specialty as a psychiatrist. I can do a lot of these jobs from home. I do a lot of PRN work, but it's telepsychiatry and it's kind of on demand. So I can cook dinner, feed the kids, and like run upstairs and do some work as well. So I just think it's a lot to do with that. I also have very supportive family and a supportive husband who he's not a doctor, but he always when I'm working the weekends, he's taking care of the kids, things like that.
And how do you teach your kids about money? Are they old enough to learn about money yet?
Well, they're only 3 and 4, but we're
So pretty
so
young.
I mean, we tell them like, they're like, "Mommy, Daddy, like, why are you going to work?" And we're like, "Well, we have to earn money so that we can continue to pay for the stuff that you have." And another thing that we're going to implement is like earning things with like charts and tokens and but we haven't quite gotten to that yet.
Yeah, they're pretty young. What about your upbringing? How did your upbringing affect how you manage money?
Well, so my parents, they chose a really, really low cost of living in of area. They kind of geo arbitraged before I think they even knew what that concept was. It was in a very rural area. So my dad, we had a very we lived well within our means. And my dad always was maxing out his solo 401k since 1980. Sometimes when it came time to be like putting the money into the solo 401k, he'd be like scrambling to get the funds, but he always maxed it out, each year. And we always lived, well within our means. Never bought the most expensive home in the neighborhood, or things like that. No expensive vacations. So I think that really like influenced how I'm able to do that now.
So you had these great examples, right? That taught you all this stuff about money, and yet you still had to have your own aha moment.
Of course, I had to have my own awakening just that one fine day in April 2018.
When you realize that, oh yes, if I don't do what my parents did, I'm not going to end up where I want to end up.
I'm going to be with one of those statistics.
Pretty awesome. So let's go back to where you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You got a doc, med student, resident, someone coming out of training just like you, wants to get to where you are. What advice do you have for them?
Well, I would say, discover your blog and your podcast early. I wish I did it as an attending, but this is like, find the stuff early. Don't have a financial advisor, do it yourself, read a few books, read your book, get that and manage it yourself. And I think the biggest thing that people sort of overlook is, a lot of people just choose job and they allow that corporation or that hospital to own their time, and to just really look at a contract and say like, if you do that, if you say like, if you work somewhere where they aren't allowing you to work elsewhere, then you've reached your ceiling of your income. You've reached that. So just to be open to looking at that piece of it when you are choosing a job.
Yeah, ownership matters for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Miriam, thank you so much. Your story is very inspiring. I know somebody's going to hear you and go, I can do what she did. And you will cause them to be successful as well. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for everything you do.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure. So pretty interesting takeaway there, right? We've compared this to some of the other episodes we've had recently where people maybe didn't get the best example from their parents. Here's someone that had their parents giving them a great example and still found herself as a doc living paycheck to paycheck. And it just demonstrates how intentional you have to be. It's not that this stuff is hard. It's not hard to become wealthy on a physician income, but it doesn't happen automatically. There's still a few things that you have to do, and you have to do them right in order to get there. And I hope these episodes are inspiring to you to help you put those steps into place so you also can become wealthy. This episode was brought to you by 37th Parallel Properties. There's a substantial body of evidence supporting commercial real estate investing. Through the years, as I gained a deeper understanding of the asset class, I added more and more to my portfolio. But unless you want to manage it yourself, the real trick is to find a trusted investment sponsor. As one of the good guys in the industry, 37th Parallel Properties is a partner I trust. To check them out, go to whitecoatinvestor.com/37parallel. Keep your head up, shoulders back. You've got this, and we can help. We'll see you next time on the Milestones to Millionaire podcast.
My dad, your host, Dr. Dolly, is a practicing emergency physician, blogger, author, and podcaster. He is not a licensed accountant, attorney, or financial advisor, so this podcast is for your entertainment and information only and should not be considered official, personalized financial advice.